It's a Thursday evening, not late, maybe 7 o'clock. He's sitting on the couch, shoes still on, jacket half off. He ordered food, not expensive, just food. It arrives, he eats, and somewhere between the second and third bite, a thought comes. I got paid 4 days ago. He opens his account, not because something is wrong, just to look, and the number is fine. It's fine. There's money in there. He's not broke. But there's also not much more than there was last month or the month before. And that's what stays with him as he sets the phone down. Not panic, not urgency, just a quiet feeling, like something is moving, but he can't quite see it. This is where the story actually starts. He earns a reasonable salary, not a fortune, but solid. After tax, he takes home around $3,800 a month. In most places, that's a comfortable number to work with. Rent is $1,350. That's actually pretty good for where he lives. He negotiated it down when he renewed. He was proud of that. Car payment is $340. Insurance on top of that. Utilities, subscriptions. He counted them once and stopped counting when it got uncomfortable. Groceries run about $280 a month when he's disciplined, a bit more when he isn't. Eating out, that number is harder to pin down. He'd rather not look too closely. By the time all of it settles, he's left with somewhere between $400 and $600 at month's end. Some months more, some months less. And that remainder, that leftover, sits in his checking account. Not invested, not growing, just sitting. He tells himself he'll figure it out later. He's told himself that for about 26 months now. But here's the part most people don't notice. The problem isn't the spending. The problem isn't even the amount left over. The problem is what happens to money that just sits still. There's a system that most people aren't really aware of. Not a conspiracy, just a structure. The economy's built on spending. Every platform, every subscription, every one-click purchase, they're all optimized to make the gap between income and savings as small as possible. Not through force, through friction reduction. It's easier than ever to spend money, and it's still about as hard as it's always been to hold on to it. So when he sits on that couch and wonders why the number doesn't grow, the answer isn't that he's bad with money. The answer is that the path of least resistance leads away from saving and toward spending every time. And there's a second layer to this, a subtler one. When money sits in a checking account, it doesn't stay neutral. Inflation means that $500 sitting still is worth slightly less every month, not dramatically, but consistently. The money feels safe, but it's very slowly going backwards. He doesn't know this, or maybe he knows it the way you know you should drink more water, technically, but not practically. And this is where it gets interesting, because the reverse of that system also exists, and it works just as quietly, just as consistently, just in the other direction. $5 a day. That's $150 a month, which is, for him, well within what he has left over. It's less than 2 of those Thursday night food deliveries. And on its own, $150 a month doesn't sound particularly powerful. At the end of a year, that's $1,800. Fine, not nothing, but not life-changing either. But here's what changes when you put that $150 into a broad index fund, something that has historically averaged somewhere around 7 to 8% annually after inflation. Not guaranteed, not promised, just a long-term historical average. After 10 years, that $150 has grown to roughly $26,000. He put in about $18,000. The rest came from compounding. After 20 years, still just $150 a month, no changes. It's closer to $82,000. After 30 years, around $180,000 to $200,000. He contributed $54,000 over 30 years. The market added roughly $130,000 on top of that, from $5 a day. The math isn't magic, it's just time, and the willingness to let something run without touching it. Most people fail at investing because of the amounts. They fail because of the delay, because of "I'll figure it out later." Every year of delay at 30 years out costs roughly $14,000 in final value, just from waiting 1 year. So the question isn't really about money, it's about something else. He knows most of this, not the exact numbers, but the general shape of it. He's seen videos, he's read articles, he's nodded along. So why hasn't he started? Part of it is friction. Setting up an account, choosing where to put the money, deciding how much, these feel like decisions that require a lot of certainty before you make them, and certainty is rare. But there's something deeper going on. He lives in a world where the visible markers of doing well, the apartment, the car, the dinners out, the things people can see, those feel more real than a number sitting in a brokerage account that nobody will ever notice. Spending is social. Saving is invisible. His coworker just upgraded his car. His friend posted from a trip, not because they're irresponsible, but because the system rewards visible progress, and invisible progress is very hard to feel good about, especially in the early years when the numbers are still small. There's also something called present bias. The human brain is genuinely wired to weight immediate rewards more heavily than distant ones. $5 today feels like $5. $5 invested for 30 years doesn't feel like $50. It feels like $5 that you gave away. This isn't a character flaw, it's a wiring issue. And the people who build wealth early aren't necessarily smarter or more disciplined. They've usually just found a way to make the invisible feel real. Fast forward 10 years. He's still working, still earning. The salary has gone up a little, not as much as he expected, but enough. And the structure of his life looks almost identical to how it looked at 30. Same type of apartment, similar car, similar month-to-month rhythm. Not because he made bad decisions, but because he never built any margin. Margin is the word that doesn't get used enough in conversations about money. Not wealth, not retirement, margin. The gap between what you earn and what you need. The space that gives you choices. Without margin, every decision is a reaction. A sudden medical bill, a sudden rent increase, a job that stops feeling right, these aren't options, they're crises. With margin, the same events become inconveniences. The $150 a month doesn't buy him a different life in 10 years, but it does buy him options. And options are what most people quietly realize they're missing when they're deep into their 30s or 40s to look back. The long-term effect of not starting isn't poverty. For most people in this range, it's something quieter and harder to name. It's the feeling of being permanently busy, permanently close to the edge, permanently dependent on the next paycheck, even when the paychecks are good. That's the cost. Not dramatic, just persistent. There's a different kind of person worth noticing. Not someone richer, not someone who earns more or spends less, just someone who thinks about money differently, and it shows up in very quiet ways. They don't talk about returns, they don't follow markets obsessively, they don't have some complex portfolio strategy. What they have is an automated transfer set up years ago. Money moves on the same day every month without them having to decide anything. $100, $200, whatever the number was when they started, it just moves. They made the decision once and then removed the decision from their life. And here's the subtle thing about that. It's not about discipline. Discipline is exhausting and unreliable. It's about architecture. They built a system where the right thing happens automatically and spending what's left is the default. They also think about money differently when it comes to time. Most people think about money in monthly terms, income versus expenses. Financially calm people tend to think in longer units. Not what does this cost this month, but what does this cost me in years? What does this decision look like in a decade? Not because they're more sophisticated, just because they've trained themselves to expand the frame slightly. $5 a day is invisible in any given week. Across a working life, it's something else entirely. The shift isn't in the amount, it's in when you start. He finishes eating. The phone is face down on the couch now. He's still thinking about that number on the screen, the one that didn't grow, the one that's been about the same for 2 years. And for the first time, he's thinking about it differently. Not as a failure, not as a problem to panic about, just as a starting point. The math doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require a raise or a windfall or a different life. It just requires a decision. One decision to stop waiting for the right moment and start with the moment that already exists. $5. Not because it changes everything immediately, but because the version of him that starts today has something the version of him that waits does not. Time. And that, quietly, is the whole thing. If this helped you see something clearly, consider subscribing. There's more like this coming.